премьер-министром Индии Нарендром Моди и уважаемым президентом Российской Федерации, его превосходительством Владимиром Путиным на полях саммита лидеры провели плотные встречи в июне 2025 года.
एक्सेलेंसी इकोनॉमिक साइड पर हम पिछले महीने मॉस्को में हुए इंडिया रशिया वर्किंग ग्रुप ऑन ट्रेड एंड इकोनॉमिक कोऑपरेशन की 26th मीटिंग के सफल आयोजन का स्वागत करते हैं और हम रशिया लेड यूरेशियन इकोनॉमिक यूनियन के साथ फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट के लिए बातचीत शुरू होने का भी स्वागत करते हैं.
Ваше превосходительство, об экономических отношениях Индия приветствует успешное проведение 26-го заседания Межправительственной комиссии по торгово-экономическому сотрудничеству в Москве в прошлом месяце, а также приветствуем, что начинаются переговоры о соглашении о свободной торговле с Евразийским экономическим союзом.
एक्सेलेंसी हम 23rd इंडिया रशिया एनुअल समिट के लिए रशियन फेडरेशन के प्रेसिडेंट हिज एक्सेलेंसी मिस्टर व्लादिमीर पुतिन के भारत आने का भी बेसब्री से इंतजार कर रहे थे, वह आज पूरा हुआ है.
Ваше превосходительство, мы также с нетерпением ждали приветствовать его превосходительство господина Владимира Владимировича Путина, президента Российской Федерации, и который будет провести 23-й ежегодный индо-российский саммит, и сегодня поступил этот день.
और ये लीडर्स समिति दोनों देशों के बीच स्पेशल और प्रिविलेज पार्टनरशिप को और मजबूत करेगी, ऐसा मेरा विश्वास है. इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ योर एक्सेलेंसी मैं आपसे आपके रिमार्क्स के लिए अनुरोध करूंगा. धन्यवाद.
Этот саммит будут углублять и укреплять особые и привилегированные партнерства между нашими странами. Ваше превосходительство, я сейчас завершу и прошу вас за вступительные слова. Спасибо.
Спасибо. Уважаемый господин министр, уважаемые коллеги, друзья, намасте.
Намасте.
Thank you so much, distinguished minister, distinguished colleagues, distinguished guests. Namaste.
Искренне рад нашей новой встрече на индийской земле. Благодарны за гостеприимство, оказанное нам с первых минут пребывания в Нью-Дели.
I sincerely glad to meet you once again on Indian soil. We are grateful for the hospitality shown to us from the first minutes of stay in New Delhi.
Как вы сказали, господин министр, наши страны связывает крепкая, проверенная временем дружба, основанная на взаимном уважении.
As you just said, our countries are tied with a solid, time-proven friendship which is based on mutual respect.
И вот сейчас мы с господином министром вместе ехали в машине, обсуждали разные вопросы и пришли к общему мнению, что она базируется на очень глубоких ценностях, которые свойственны и российскому, и индийскому обществу.
And on our way here, while we were in the car discussing various things, we came to the common ground that we are binded with a very deep traditions which are very typical for the Russian and Indian nations.
В этом году отмечается 80-летие победы в Великой Отечественной войне 1941-1945 годов. И я благодарю индийскую делегацию за участие в торжественных мероприятиях, которые проходили в Москве в мае этого года.
This year we mark 80th anniversary of victory in Great Patriotic War 1941-1945, and I personally thank Indian delegation for the participants in the solemn activities which were organized in Moscow May this year.
Наши двусторонние отношения носят стратегический характер. Партнерство с Индией является залогом равновесия в южноазиатском регионе и глобальной безопасности в целом.
Our bilateral relations have a strategic character, and the partnership with India is a key factor for the balance in South Asian region and the global security in general.
Россия оказывает полноценное содействие Индии в формировании современного облика сухопутных войск, военно-воздушных и военно-морских сил. И, пользуясь случаем, хотел бы поздравить вас господин министр, командование и всех индийских военных моряков с Днем национальных военно-морских сил.
Russia cooperates in full scale with India in formation of the new outlook of the Army, Air Force and the Navy. And using this opportunity, let me congratulate you, the command and all Indian sailors with National Navy Day.
Господин министр, существенный вклад в принятие эффективных и взаимовыгодных решений в оборонной сфере вносит межправительственная комиссия по военному и военно-техническому сотрудничеству.
Distinguished Minister, the Intergovernmental Commission on Military and Military Technical Cooperation brings a huge dedication and taking part in taking effective and mutually beneficial decisions in the military domain.
Сегодня подведем итоги ее работы и определим задачи на будущее.
Today we sum up its work and define the new tasks for future.
Разрешите представить членов российской делегации.
Let me introduce the delegates of the Russian Federation.
Осьмаков Василий Сергеевич, заместитель министра обороны Российской Федерации.
Осьмаков Василий Сергеевич is the Deputy Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation.
Шугаев Дмитрий Евгеньевич, директор Федеральной службы по военно-техническому сотрудничеству Российской Федерации.
Шугаев Дмитрий Евгеньевич, Director of the Federal Service on Military Technical Cooperation of the Russian Federation.
Лосогорский Кирилл Алексеевич, первый заместитель министра промышленности и торговли Российской Федерации.
Лысогорский Кирилл Алексеевич, the First Deputy Minister of Industry and Trade of the Russian Federation.
Генерал-лейтенант Бабич Михаил Викторович, статс-секретарь, заместитель директора Федеральной службы по военно-техническому сотрудничеству Российской Федерации.
Lieutenant General Babich Mikhail Viktorovich, he is a State Secretary and Deputy Director of the Federal Service of Military Technical Cooperation of Russian Federation.
Генерал-майор Орехов Алексей Анатольевич, начальник Главного управления международного военного сотрудничества Министерства обороны Российской Федерации.
Major General Orechov Alexei Anatольевич, he is the head of the main directorate on international military cooperation of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation.
Генерал-лейтенант Делевский Игорь Николаевич, заместитель начальника Главного оперативного управления Генерального штаба Вооруженных сил Российской Федерации, председатель российской части российско-индийской рабочей группы по военному сотрудничеству.
Lieutenant General Delevsky Igor Nikolaevich, he is the Deputy Chief of the main operational directorate of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, also a chairman from the Russian side in Russian-Indian Working Group on Military Cooperation.
Генерал-майор Пескунов Виктор Владимирович, советник Генерального штаба Вооруженных сил Российской Федерации.
Major General Piskunov Viktor Vladimirovich, he is advisor from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation.
Михеев Александр Александрович, генеральный директор акционерного общества Рособоронэкспорт.
Mikheev Alexander Alexandrovich, he is the Director General of Rosoboronexport Corporation.
Молостов Валерий Иванович, начальник департамента управления президента Российской Федерации по внешней политике.
Molostov Valery Ivanovich, he is the head of the Foreign Policy Department of the President Administration of the Russian Federation.
Гутенев Владимир Владимирович, первый заместитель председателя Общероссийской общественной организации Союз машиностроителей России.
Gutenyov Vladimir Vladimirovich, he is the first deputy of the chairman of all Russian community organization, the Union of Machine Builders of Russia.
Козлов Александр Леонидович, заместитель директора департамента Министерства иностранных дел Российской Федерации.
Kozlov Alexander Leonidovich, he is the deputy director of the Department of Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation.
Баистов Виктор Владимирович, референт аппарата Совета Безопасности Российской Федерации.
Baistov Viktor Vladimirovich, he is Assistant Secretary Council of the Russian Federation.
И капитан первого ранга Вяткин Евгений Сергеевич, начальник третьего управления Главного управления кадров Министерства обороны Российской Федерации.
And Navy Captain Vyatkin Evgeny Sergeyevich, he is the head of the third direction of the main directorate of personnel of Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation.
В зале присутствуют также представители российского оборонно-промышленного комплекса.
In our hall together, we are present all the representatives from the defense industrial complex.
Убежден, что наша встреча будет способствовать укреплению российско-индийских отношений в области обороны и безопасности. Благодарю за внимание.
I'm sure that our meeting today will facilitate the strengthening of Russian-Indian relations in domain of defense and security. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Excellency. I would also like to introduce my delegation members. Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan. Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Ganesh Kumar Tripathi. Chief of Army Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi. Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Amarpreet Singh. Defence Secretary, Sri Rajesh Kumar Singh. Secretary Defence Production, Sri Sanjeev Kumar. Secretary DD&D and Chairman DRDO, Dr. Samir V. Kamath. DG Acquisition, Sri A. Anand, Joint Secretary International Cooperation.
And I'm joined by my colleague Siddhant as those delegation level talks are currently underway between Rajnath Singh and his team, as well as Andrei Bolsov, the Defense Minister of Russia. Siddhant is joining us on the broadcast. So Siddhant, clearly warm statements, introductory statements at the beginning of the meeting, but also laying out the agenda that expansion of defense ties is the need of the hour, as Russia is aiming to expand that paradigm that has always been a central part of the relationship between India and Russia. So many things on the anvil, so many projects in the pipeline, and the mission of the Modi government is to expedite all of them.
Well, that's right. So there are two existing intergovernmental commission level mechanism between India and Russia. One is military-to-military cooperation. The other is for the other issues in the bilateral relationship. So right now, military-to-military cooperation intergovernmental meeting is going on at Manekshaw Center in New Delhi. And in fact, Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh is holding talks with his Russian counterpart. So Russians have many things to offer. Ayushman and perhaps whether it's Su-57, S-500, S-400, etc. will be discussed in this meeting.
Right. Thanks, Siddhant, for getting us that update. We'll continue to track all the developments which are coming in from that meeting between the defense ministers of both sides, as well as the countdown to the touchdown of Russian President Vladimir Putin. But big breaking news coming in, a huge setback to the Stalin government when it comes to the Madurai temple controversy. The Madras High Court has now dismissed the appeal against the single judge order permitting devotees to light the lamps at the Deepathun pillar atop the Thiruparakundaram Hills, which is located close to a dargah. Remember, the original order was that the Deepathun pillar, which is right next to the dargah, it's about 50 meters away from the dargah. The devotees have the authority, have the right to light that particular pillar. That was the order which came in from the Madurai bench of the Madras High Court. But the Stalin government stopped the devotees from going up the hilltop to light that pillar, which resulted in the violent scenes that we're seeing right now on our screens. This happened late last night, and the tensions only continue between the Hindu groups, the BJP, as well as the Stalin government. But the Stalin government then moved the Madras High Court against that order, and now that plea has been struck down by the Madras High Court, saying that the devotees have the right to light that Deepathun, which is 50 meters away from the dargah, saying that given the fact that the Deepathun pillar is technically on temple grounds, the Muslim community should not have a problem with devotees lighting that particular pillar. That is the big piece of news that's coming in, a huge setback to the Stalin government, which blocked the devotees in contravention of the Madras High Court order, and now the Stalin government's plea to oppose that particular order of the Madras High Court, to overturn that has been rejected by the two judges of the Madras High Court. I'm joined by my colleague Purnima Murli on the broadcast. So Purnima, what is the plan ahead for the Stalin government? Clearly their gambit has failed when it comes to appealing against the Madras High Court order. Are they likely to continue the operation on the ground with the imposition of Section 144 to block devotees from going up the hilltop to light the Deepathun pillar?
Well, in fact, the Madurai bench of the Madras High Court had on Wednesday heard a contempt petition filed by the petitioner, saying that they are not, the temple authorities are not lighting the diya at the Deepathun, which the Madurai bench had directed, and filed a contempt petition. The Madurai bench had pulled up the Tamil Nadu government yesterday and said that the petitioner along with 10 others, can go and light the diya at the Deepatun. However, when they went to the place, there were heavy barricades in place. There were hundreds of Hindu activists that gathered there, trying to go to the hilltop. However, permission was not granted. Scuffle broke out. Barricades were broken, and then Section 144 was imposed. Today, there are two cases before the Madurai bench. The order was passed for a counter petition filed by the Tamil Nadu government against the contempt petition that was filed by the petitioner. So it's a setback for the Tamil Nadu government, and the Madurai bench had in fact dismissed the plea filed by the Tamil Nadu government. All eyes on whether the petitioners will once again approach the court seeking permission to light diya, because Kartike Deepam spans over a period of 3 days. So we all eyes on whether there will be any sort of action today as well. We'll have to wait for the next couple of hours.
Right, with the dismissal of the plea of the Tamil Nadu government, now the Hindu groups have been empowered to approach the court once again, because this entire controversy is only escalating in the state of Tamil Nadu. You saw those visuals last night, ladies and gentlemen, where the devotees were blocked by the local police despite the court orders. But let's listen into the reactions coming in as the war of words continues to escalate.
The undemocratic DMK government brazenly defying the court order, allowing the lighting of the sacred Kartigai Deepam lamp, shows the DMK government's deep disrespect for Ambedkarji's constitution. It also exposes the DMK government's bitter hatred towards Hindu faith and Hindu devotees. And the autocratic way in which the DMK government is attacking and assaulting crores of the self-respect and the faith of crores of Hindu devotees shows the anti-Hindu mentality and mindset of the DMK.
This is the mischief played by the BJP and its alliance. The problem here is the local people are not happy with the entry of these people. They are not the saviors of Hindus. The Dravidian movement, as I repeatedly say, the Dravidian movement was started only to save Hindus who were backward classes and scheduled castes. They are the cheats of Hindus. And the local people were very happy that these people were chased away. That is the situation there. They are troublemakers.
It is the responsibility and role of the elected government to ensure peace and harmony in the society. If the elected government ensures that lets there be a religious divide and its acts fuels religious divide, it clearly indicates that DMK has started to play vote bank politics based on religion, based on caste. It's really unfortunate, and this incompetence of this government is going to cost big in the upcoming elections. This is highly condemnable.
DMK's anti-Sanatan, anti-Hindu mindset and their contempt for judicial order has been completely exposed. The Madras High Court explicitly allowed Hindu devotees to go and light the Kartikai Deepam at the ancient Deepathun pillar on the Tiruparanakundram hill, but it was blocked by the DMK government and the DMK police. Hundreds of policemen were put specially to block the devotees. Only in name of vote bank politics, all of this was done. And we have seen time and again the contempt that DMK has, not just for judiciary, for courts, but also for Sanatan.
More breaking news coming in after no bail for the rape accused Palakkad MLA Rahul Mamkootathil. He is now likely to approach the High Court for anticipatory bail. This also comes after the Palakkad MLA has now been expelled from the Congress party, and now he faces 2 rape charges over which he is facing action. But I'm joined by my colleague Neetu Rayukumar on the broadcast as there is no trace of the Palakkad MLA who continues to abscond. Neetu, what more can you get for us when it comes to the latest development that's coming in? Despite the legal rigmarole, any trace of the Palakkad MLA?
As of now, he's still absconding. It's been 8 days since the first case has been registered. Now a second FIR has also been registered against him, and today the district court in Thiruvananthapuram has denied his anticipatory bail plea. What we are learning is that Rahul Mamkootathil will be approaching the Kerala High Court with his anticipatory bail plea. Meanwhile, the investigation team is also saying that the investigation is ongoing, and most likely they are also planning to make their move. But it's been 8 days, and an elected MLA of the state is missing, and the police has not yet been able to arrest him. So that is also being raised by opposition. And when we propose this question to the Congress, they say that this is a failure of the Kerala police, and the police should take action. Now, Congress leader Ramesh Chennithala himself has said that the party has expelled him. Now it's up to him whether he has to resign the MLA post or not. But according to his opinion, he should resign. So these are some of the comments that are coming in. The Congress saying that even when there was just an allegation, even when there was no complaint before them, they have suspended the MLA, and now after a complaint and this anticipatory bail denial, they have expelled him from the party.
Absolutely. That's the big question before the police. Despite serious rape allegations, 2 of them, how is this MLA still absconding for the last 8 days? That is the big question before the Kerala police. And now he's likely to approach the High Court for anticipatory bail. So despite the legal rigmarole, this Palakkad MLA is still at large. We will continue to track all the developments coming in. For now, a quick break. More news and updates on the other side.
This
You know, the problem is that there doesn't seem to be any solution to that war. And I'll ask Mr. Ivan, who's joining us from Kiev. Mr. Ivan, this week, Mr. Steve Witkoff, who's Trump's special envoy, Mr. Jared Kushner, who's his son-in-law, who's also been mandated to try and find some kind of a solution, a ceasefire to the Ukraine war, was sent there. Again, they spent 5 hours with President Putin, some of his top foreign policy aides. They haven't quite achieved a breakthrough yet. So what will it take for this war to end? Because, like I said, India has now skin in this game because India is being penalized for importing oil from Russia.
Greetings to the studio, greetings to all guests and of course all audience. Of course, we understand that attempt to make some peace, as we understand, failed because there was no immediate meeting between special Trump envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner with European partners and Ukrainian partners immediately after visit in Moscow. Today evening, we expect a meeting between Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner with Ukrainian delegation in Miami in the United States of America. But frankly speaking, we don't see a prospect of any peace solution. So Russia still wants to win this war. Even the spokesman of President Putin said that they want to achieve targets that they initially want. It's actually, from Ukrainian perspective, it's demolition of Ukraine, it's killing of Ukrainian people or so. As for me, previous week, Russian drone hit a residential building in front of my house, so I thought that it was Putin attempt to kill me personally. That's why, of course, for me it's hard to wait something good from Putin, and especially taking into account the previous meeting between President Putin and the Prime Minister Modi in Moscow, when Russia hit the largest children's hospital in Kiev. That's why we always have a fear that Putin always like to make some serious hits in moments.
Mr. Ivan, give me one moment, yes, because we're getting live pictures from the War Memorial here in central Delhi. This is the Indian Defense Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, and his Russian counterpart, Mr. Belousov, both of whom are there. They will be taking part in this wreath-laying ceremony, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Ambassador Dogra is here with us as well. I believe after this ceremony, they will go and have their own sort of bilateral meeting, the two defense ministers. Obviously, defense is a big component of this relationship, Ambassador. So what should we look out for? Because there's a lot of chatter around, you know, S-400s and S-500s and Sukhoi 57, etc. And defense has been a big component of the... let me start with you, Ambassador Dogra, because the overall geopolitical context is critical. I mean, there is the Ukraine war that's been going on for almost 4 years. Now it's going to be 4 years next February. Prime Minister has said, I think as far back as 2022 September, this is not the era of war, but that war is still continuing. And willy-nilly, India is also now paying a price because of this import of Russian oil. India is the only country that's been tariffed by Trump for these oil tariffs. What is the big broad picture as President Putin touches down in India in a couple of hours' time?
Well, I think the list of your guests says it all, because the broad picture is going to be watched all over the world, especially in the Western world, Washington in particular, then of course Ukraine for its own reasons, and Russia because it's an important player, and the Russian president is going to be here. But the context is much bigger than just this visit, because the background to this visit and what may happen because of this visit is important. There is a state of flux in international affairs presently. There's no fixed unipolar world any longer, and despite Trump's desire to have a G2, the fact is that it has not happened, and it may not happen, because there are other powers in the world, especially India, which wants its place under the sun. So the meeting may not set off a new world order, but the meeting could very well set off a new complexion to the world, and that is why this visit is important. So, second is the suspicion it might generate in Washington, and certain amount of desire to know more it might generate in Beijing.
John Coulter is joining us live from Moscow. Now, one of the things... Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the big Modi-Putin power play. Remember, in about an hour's time, President Putin of Russia will be touching down at the Palam Technical Airport here in Delhi. He will drive straight down to 7 LKM, the residence of the Prime Minister, where there will be a private dinner followed by restricted talks between the Prime Minister and the President. Of course, President Putin is in India for a day and a half. He will be co-chairing the 23rd Annual India-Russia Summit, something that first began when he first became president way back in the year 2000. He will now be co-chairing the 23rd edition of the annual summit. Remember, this is the first time that he's traveling to India since the Russia-Ukraine war began. That was more than 3 years ago. But it is coming at an important geopolitical context, at a time of great geopolitical flux. There is this great power competition that is going on between America and Russia. And India, for the last 20-25 years, has maintained its strategic balance, its strategic autonomy by having good relations with both America and Russia. Right now, though, Russia and America are at loggerheads, but for India, both these countries are equally important for our long-term goals and growth. Let's look at the current state of the partnership between India and Russia and India and the United States. On the one hand, the US, of course, is India's largest trade partner. India exports more than $80 billion to the United States. Russia, on the other hand, has the second largest trade deficit for India on the back of a large amount of Russian oil and gas, more than 60 billion being imported by India. At the same time, the US has imposed 50% tariff on India, 25% reciprocal tariffs, and 25% for oil tariffs for importing Russian oil. On the other side, 80% of India's imports from Russia happen to be Russian energy, whether it is oil or gas. The US, on the other hand, has been imposing stricter and stricter rules for labor mobility, particularly H-1B. Just earlier this morning, there were new rules that have been tightened for H-1B as well as H-4, which are dependent visas. Russia, on the other hand, is going to welcome talent from India. There's going to be a labor mobility agreement that will be signed tomorrow amongst the 10 government-to-government agreements. Also, one cannot ignore the historic 10-year defense pact that was signed between India and the US. This was on the back of the previous 10-year pact expiring. It also involved several aspects ranging from countering China's influence in the Indo-Pacific, the Quad. However, Trump seems to have gone cold on that. Russia, on the other hand, is India's top weapon supplier. Even today, 36% of India's new weapons imports comes from Russia. And if you were to add spare parts, supplies, maintenance, etc., more than 60% of India's weapons inventory has a Russian origin. I want to go across to a piece of breaking news that's just coming through. Government sources on the expected outcomes of President Putin's visit. It is largely going to be in the economic realm, in the trade arena. So they're expecting a lot of agreements around trade and economic cooperation. President Putin is traveling with a large group of business persons. In fact, 75 CEOs. We're given to understand it's the largest business delegation that President Putin is traveling with. The aim is to increase India's exports to Russia and to narrow the trade deficit. Aman Sharma, our political editor, has more details on this. So what is the hindrance in trying to get more Indian exports into Russia so far, and why does the government hope that that will change with this visit?
Well, Zaka, what top government sources are telling us that economic cooperation is on the top of the agenda of this particular visit of the Russian president. You know, a lot has been spoken about the defense cooperation on both sides, but this time economic cooperation is going to take, the biggest importance, because we have a big trade deficit with Russia, nearly $69 billion worth trade between both countries, but India's exports to Russia are less than $5 billion. And that is what India is trying to improve, that our exports increase to Russia. Russia also, we believe, is very interested in getting, increasing Indian exports to Russia. What we are learning is that large number of business persons, business delegation is coming along with Mr. Putin. India is expecting to improve its trade deficit, and multiple avenues are being worked to increase these Indian exports to Russia. This could be in the fields of pharma, automobiles, agricultural products, as well as marine products. This is what India is going to stress on, and this could reflect in the kind of government-to-government agreements maybe which are signed between both the countries during this visit. Top government sources also saying that Indian businesses and products will get a bigger market in Russia once these agreements are signed. This will also boost job creation, helpful for our farmers as well. Something that India has stoutly defended when it comes to the Indo-US trade deal. Also, India wanted to stoutly defend the interests of its farmers. Top government sources saying that this increasing exports of agricultural products to Russia will, in fact, is for the well-being of our farmers. We could see an agreement maybe around that. Also, multiple agreements and MOUs. Zaka, top government sources are saying in the field of shipping, healthcare, fertilizers and connectivity, as well as people-to-people contact kind of MOUs, cultural MOUs could be signed between both the sides. All this is on the agenda, mobility partnerships, scientific collaborations as well. So I think the top agenda, Zaka, this time seems to be economic cooperation and increasing India's exports to Russia.
Absolutely. The trade deficit has been a point of concern on the back of course, a lot of Russian oil being imported by India over the last 3 years. We'll see how that plays out. I want to open this up to our guests here in our studios. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, former diplomat, is joining us. Meera Shankar, former ambassador to the United States, is joining us. Brahma Chalani, strategic affairs expert, is there with us as well. Julia Krill is an international affairs expert, and Tatiana Kukreva is a senior Russian journalist who is also joining us on the broadcast this evening. Ambassador Dogra, let me start with you. What is the impediment? What's the problem in India exporting more to Russia? You've been on the Russia desk, so what's historically been the problem?
Well, on the positive side, let me start on the positive side. There's a lot of empathy, both at the people-to-people level and bureaucratic and political level. So, ideally speaking, there should not be any impediment. But practically, there are lots of impediments. Let's start with the travel, for example. It's not easy to get a business or tourist visa to Russia. Second is the language issue. It's easier to go to English-speaking countries and export. Third is the issue of lack of knowledge about what the other country wants. We do not have any correspondent, to my knowledge, in Russia. We have a whole lot of correspondents in UK, USA, and so on. But if you had a business correspondent, say in Moscow, who traveled around and informed about what is happening, what is the need for the Russian market, it would help a lot. Third is the travel generally.
Okay.
If there is people-to-people movement, then naturally it facilitates trade. Much more than that, I think what is also needed is that there should be some kind of a recognition in Russia that if Indians can develop Gulf through their contribution,
correct.
If Indians can develop the Silicon Valley through their contribution, if Indians can head multinational corporations all over the world, Why can't the same thing be done through their contribution in Russia? There's not even a single Russian who can be counted.
It's interesting, one of the things that they will be signing tomorrow is a labor mobility agreement. I believe there's only 70,000 Indians living and working in Russia right now. You compare that to over 5 million Indian Americans. Tatiana is joining us from Moscow. So Tatiana, President Putin will be arriving, I believe will be touching down in less than an hour. He, I believe, will be traveling with the largest Russian business delegation that has ever visited India. What can we expect in terms of tangibles, in terms of, big agreements that will be announced tomorrow?
Well, Zaka, we've heard that there are over 15 agreements on the books, and just as it has been said, it is going to be largely focusing on the economic cooperation. The president has already said that this is a very special, unique relationship, the relationship that has already helped change a lot of things on the international arena, as well as, just the bilaterally. Because taking into account that over 90% of transactions between Moscow and New Delhi is already conducted, for instance, in national currencies. There are so many things from pharma to defense to space exploration to nuclear energy that all of them are on the table. The big corporations are traveling within this delegation. So it is going to be a very fruitful visit, that's for sure.
Tatiana, give me a moment. I want to go across to this piece of breaking news that's coming through as well. A top source has told CNN News 18 that Prime Minister Modi is likely to go to the airport to receive President Putin. That's going to be in about an hour's time. I want to go straight across to Siddhant, who's got information on this. So this is a rare gesture. The Prime Minister usually doesn't go to receive visiting heads of state. I think very few times he's done that, once with Barack Obama, once with Netanyahu, once with former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. So this is a courtesy, an extension of the respect and the depth of this relationship. What are you picking up, Siddhant?
Well, that's right, Zaka. In fact, this is a very rare gesture. And since President Putin is coming after the gap of 5 years for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit, so now there is an update that in all likelihood, Prime Minister Modi could go to the airport to receive President Putin. Zaka, till afternoon, the sources were telling us that the minister in waiting for President Putin is EMS Jaishankar, who is equivalent to Russian First Deputy Prime Minister Denis Manturov, who received Prime Minister Modi when he visited Moscow last year. But now we're getting to know, in fact, sources are telling us that Prime Minister Modi could likely be going to the airport to receive President Putin. We are still awaiting official word from the government, but sources are indicating that Prime Minister will go himself to receive President Putin.
All right, Siddhant, we'll leave it at that. We'll see as and when that happens. In an hour's time, President Putin expected to touch down at the Palam airport in New Delhi. I want to go back to our guests. Ambassador Meera Shankar is there with us. Mr. Brahmachalani is also there with us. Julia Kirill is with us as well. Ambassador Shankar, let me ask, obviously, one of the global capitals where this is going to be closely watched, this visit, the outcomes, the body language, what is said, what is not said, is going to be Washington, particularly the current occupant of the White House. How do you see America, and in particular President Trump, reacting to what we're expected to see over the next 24 or 30 hours or so?
I don't think I want to predict how President Trump is going to react. But clearly, the US effort has been to pressurize India to reduce its relationship with Russia. The sanctions on Russian oil imports, the Katsa sanctions on arms imports from Russia. The point is that the relationship with Russia has been an ongoing one for a very long time. It's been a steady partnership. It went through a difficult period after the Soviet Union collapsed. And the economic relationship in particular, which was dependent on the rupee-ruble trade, virtually collapsed in the wake of a shift to dollar trade. But in recent years, we've seen a concerted effort to seek to build synergies between the two countries. And this has actually acquired momentum because of the West's efforts to pressurize and isolate Russia in the wake of the Ukrainian conflict. You see, before that, India's efforts to explore energy imports from Russia or even diamond imports directly had faced a wall because Russia was oriented towards the West. Their elite aspired to the West, even though strategically they were seeking greater autonomy, having felt that the West had taken advantage of them during the period of their weakness.
Okay.
Still, at the level of elite, they were oriented towards the West. It is now that the West has tried to squeeze and isolate Russia, that Russia has turned more towards Asia. And that's not without its problems for India, because that includes China as one of the major interlocutors for Russia, but also India, because Russia would certainly not want to be exclusively dependent on China. Now, for India, this is going to be challenging because we would like to have an autonomous strategic space to navigate, particularly in the light of the kind of road bumps we are facing in the relationship with the US.
No, but that is the problem, isn't it? Professor Brahmachalani has been talking about this for a number of years now. I mean, strategic autonomy was what India believed in and continues to believe in. But now Trump is basically saying that there is a price to pay for that strategic autonomy. And that is in the form of these 50% tariffs, Professor Chalani. I mean, the question is, can India absorb that?
You raise an important question, Zaka. At a time when US policy toward India has turned erratic and even punitive under President Trump, I think the symbolism of President Putin's reception in New Delhi could not have been more pointed. The fact that Prime Minister Modi is going to receive Putin at the airport really underscores how India is rediscovering Russia as a reliable long-term partner. And by hosting Putin, India is sending an unmistakable message to Washington that India is a sovereign power with global choices, unwilling to accept the Western imposed with us or against us binary, and determined to chart its own course. So that message is clearly being sent to Washington, whether Trump likes it or not. Whatever his response might be, the fact is that his policies and actions have resulted in a situation where the US risks losing India at its own peril. It has pushed India away. It has punished India so harshly that the US tariffs on India are higher than the US tariffs on China.
Exactly.
Imagine, the US-India partnership was built on countering China's expansionist rise. But today, the US is treating India more harshly than even China. And it's against this background that India is strengthening its Russia channel. And for a simple reason. Washington has allowed the US-India relationship to become far more fragile than it ever should have been. But I think there is also an important message that President Putin is sending. You know that how US policy, US-led policy, has pushed Russia closer to China, including by isolating Russia from the Western markets. And Putin's visit to New Delhi signals very clearly that Russia has options beyond China, that India is a very important partner of Russia. And that's the reason why it's President Putin who's emphasizing the economic and trade dimension. Because how do you reduce reliance on China? By expanding economic ties with India.
With India. So the problem with that trade relationship, at least up until now, has been that the balance of that trade is heavily skewed in favor of Russia. by and large because of the oil imports that India has been making from Russia since this war began. But now Indian oil companies, both public and private, have said that they will reduce their import of Russian oil. How much they do that by and how soon they do that by, I don't know. We will see as the months go by. But Julia Krill, you know, I want to take forward what Professor Chalani said and what Ambassador Meera Shankar said earlier, that if President Trump is, I mean, the last time he tweeted when Prime Minister Modi, President Putin and President Xi Jinping met on the sidelines of the SCO summit in Tianjin, he said, and he tweeted, "Oh, I think we've lost India to deep, dark China." I expect him to say something of that similar nature when President Putin arrives here in India, and there's going to be a lot of pictures of Bonhomie, a lot of you know, words exchanged and agreements exchanged and so on. Trump will feel A, left out, and B, that, you know, there is this new dynamic that's shaping up between Russia and India at a time when he's been trying really hard to get Mr. Putin to agree to a ceasefire. But then, as Professor Chalani said, Trump has no one else but himself to blame for it.
Yes, you're totally right. For the United States, pulling India out of the BRICS, pulling India out of the Russia-China alliances is a strategic goal, because India is still one democracy in the party of the authoritarian states. So United States tried the tick. Now they have to probably try the carrot and try to use the playbook of Vladimir Putin, who right now, this week, already rejected another peace proposal coming from the Witkoff. So he needs to find more money to keep funding the war in Ukraine, to keep advancing in Donbas region, to keep trying to get the win on the battlefield and to pressure Ukraine into complete concession of all territories. At the same time, European Union has already voted this week to completely stop purchasing Russian gas already once and for all. So for Vladimir Putin, it's extremely important right now to find new source of revenue, and India couldn't be a better partner, because
no, but the only problem there, ma'am, is that India wants to export more to Russia, and India is tapering down its single biggest item of import from Russia, which is Russian oil. So it'll be more, you know, Russia having to pay for buying Indian stuff rather than the other way around, as you suggest.
Yes, indeed. But at the same time, if you're looking at what Russia has been doing with so many countries around the world, is bringing foreign nationals to Russia under the pretense that they will be working in Russia, studying in Russia, and then sending them to the battlefield in Ukraine. How do we know that this won't happen with Indian citizens who will be under the new
there
labor agreement?
Last I checked, and we can check with Tatiana as well, last I checked, there were a handful of Indians who had gone to fight on behalf of the Russian army. I think about 15 or 16 of them. I'm not sure about the exact number. But Tatiana, I think the larger point that's being made is that the breadth and the depth of the relationship between India and Russia has been confined to two areas. One, defense, and that's been a long-standing part of the relationship. And now, in the last few years, because of the war, on the energy side. But beyond that, there is no breadth or depth of this relationship compared to, let's say, the India-US relationship.
Well, Zaka, I find that to be quite superficial view on Julia's part, but then again, you know, it just is inevitable considering, you know, her background. First and foremost, let's go through some of the bases. You know, that she says that pulling India out of BRICS should be or could be a priority for the US. In the meantime, we've heard it many, many times that Prime Minister Modi is looking for strategic autonomy, first of all, but also geopolitical sovereignty for India, which means that for India, it is for India to decide which blocs it wants to be part of. And the suggestion that it is, you know, that America can sway the nation that is, you know, that has come already so many years ago, has come into its own, into essentially American-dominated blocs, is by default a wrong assumption to make, you know. In the meantime, we're missing so many things here. You know, I believe that it is a mistake altogether to kind of frame this visit with the context of the Ukrainian conflict. Let's not forget that, first of all, Russian-Indian relations span over so many decades.
Correct.
There is a lot of history. There's a lot of cooperation there. Yes, there's a lot of cooperation in the domain of the defense, and it is going to continue, first of all, because the huge advantage of Russian defense technology is the fact that it has been tested in real operational situations. So it is...
All right, Tatiana, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think we can go live to our reporter now who's joining us from the airport, the Palam Technical Airport, where most VVIPs, dignitaries land. Let me go across to Arun Danta, who's joining us. You can see those live pictures there behind him. Arun, what time are we expecting President Putin's plane to land? There's a lot of chatter and speculation now that the Prime Minister might actually go to the airport to receive President Putin. What are you picking up?
Well, that's right, Zaka. Prime Minister's protocol here in place, and therefore we can say that Prime Minister Modi is going to come here. He's breaking the protocol to welcome the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Let me quickly show you a glimpse of the Palam Technical Airport. If we can see it actually, that's the area, that's the gate right on your screen at this point. I would request my camera person Rama Shankar if he can just zoom in there on the gate because that's the exit gate from where you will see the convoy of both Prime Minister Modi and of course Putin will be coming out. So this is the Palam Technical Airport. This is the place where Prime Minister Modi will be arriving in a short while from now, of course, to wait Putin, and then of course both of them will be going to 7 LKM. Remember, Zaka, 7:30 is the time when a private dinner has been planned by Prime Minister Modi for the Putin. So from here at the airport, they will straight away go to 7 LKM for that private dinner. And also remember, Zaka, this is not for the first time. We've covered even previous visits of Prime Minister Modi to the airport to welcome the dignitaries. The most latest one was the visit of Amir of Qatar in this year itself, when Prime Minister Modi had again, broken the protocol and had come here to welcome the Qatar of Amir. And in fact, in 2015 also, for the first time, when Barack Obama had come here for the Republic Day as a guest, even then Prime Minister Modi had come here, even during the Sheikh Hasina's visit in 2017, Donald Trump's visit in 2022 to Ahmedabad, there also Prime Minister Modi. So there have been very few instances when Prime Minister Modi had himself come to the airport, and today is one such occasion where he's coming here to welcome Vladimir Putin. And 6:35 is the time which we are told that when the flight of Vladimir Putin is going to land here at the Palam Technical Airport. Then straight away, within 10 minutes, he'll be leaving for the 7 LKM. And the distance from here to LKM is barely 10 to 15 kilometers. So it will not take much time. By 7:15, they'll be at the LKM. And then, of course, 7:30, that private dinner in the similar way as we witnessed last year when Prime Minister Modi was in Russia, that special dinner with Putin there in his mansion.
Correct.
Yes,
he went to his summer house, and then, of course, later that year, they met in Kazan as well on the sidelines of the SCO summit. They've had multiple conversations this year as well. I think it's a sort of coming full circle in that sense, because the annual India-Russia summit was started by President Putin in the year 2000 with Prime Minister Vajpayee at that time. This is the 23rd edition for which he's coming down to India, the first in almost 4 years, in fact more than 4 years since the Russia-Ukraine war began. So it's going to be a momentous next couple of days here in New Delhi as President Putin touches down in the next 40 minutes or so, and we'll have you covered all through our evening primetime coverage right here on CNN News 18. Stay right here. It's a summit that will redefine geopolitics.
Two leaders, one visit, every moment counts.